This is my review of the Polaris VR1 650 Dynamics snowmobiles. These are both 2026 snow checks. I got these November of 2025 as a 2026 model from Dax Power Sports. They're located in Queensbury, New York. Very, very good dealer. That's where I got my two sleds before this, which were 2018 XCR switchbacks. So coming from the 2018 XCR switchbacks to the Polaris Indy VR1 650 with Dynamics, it's been a really, really nice upgrade, I would say. I would call it an upgrade, as far as like the technology and the suspension. The XCR switchbacks definitely rode, arguably better than a lot of other trail sleds, but Dynamics definitely is a game changer. These sleds both have the same exact tracks, the 1.35 Cobra, which is a really good track. I'm not studded, but it is the best track to stud. You can get the VR1s in other tracks, I think a 1.25 Ice Ripper and a 1.6 Cobra, but at that point, if you're getting a 1.6 Cobra on a VR1, you really should be getting an Assault. The 1.6 will ride a little louder. It is a louder track for sure, and the top speed will be a little bit lower on a VR1. So why did I go 650? Well, coming from the 800 to the 650, it's about equal in power actually. These 650s are putting out about 135 horsepower. However, the 650 has a lightweight crankshaft, very similar architecture to the 9R. The 650 and the 9R are more similar than the 850. The 850 is an older motor. It's probably going to be discontinued any year. In the 850, it doesn't have any get up and go until you're above 60 miles an hour. The 850 just does not wake up in the woods and the twisty trails until you're above 60 miles an hour. The 650 here, it's out of break-in, and these sleds, originally I would have thought 0 to 60 it would have kept up with an 850 or a 9R, but actually I would go as far to say as 0 to 70, even 0 to 75, these 650s will keep up with the larger cylinder sleds any day. It's extremely snappy, especially when they're out of break-in with new spark plugs. It's very snappy. That 0 to 75 miles an hour is right there. It's very quick. These sleds have about 800 miles on them each, and as far as the hours go, they have about 28.3 hours. So like I said, they're out of break-in, they have new spark plugs, and it's compared to the 800 I came from, this I would say is more snappier. That 0 to 60, that 0 to 65, 0 to 70, it's right there. You're always in the power band, which is why the 650 is a very fun motor, because you are always in the power band. Where, like I said, the 850 doesn't wake up till above 60 miles an hour. They didn't make the Dynamics last year on a 9R. It was either 650, 850, or 850 boost. The 9R is going to be the quickest in the woods and in the trees, and the quickest turn to turn. However, the 9R will use more fuel and will use more oil. The gas tanks are all the same. However, the 850 boost and the 850 or the 9R do have a slightly larger oil reservoir. It's only slightly larger according to the owner's manual, but the 650 is going to be the most fuel efficient on gas and oil, and it's just a very fun motor. Like I said, it's always in the power band. The other thing is, if you get an 850 boost, you have no storage under the seat here. So I'll take off this seat. And under here, you actually have a very large storage. So like, for example, right now, all I have in here is an emergency tow strap, but it's pretty deep down here. It has wires, I think, for a heated seat or for hooking up a passenger seat, I believe. But yeah, this, you can see I can fit my whole hand down in here. Now, this is not waterproof. I will say snow can get in here, underneath this seat in this cubby. It's not like a waterproof thing where it's like zippered or anything like that. So snow can get in there, but you can put things in there like drinks, things that you don't really care about getting wet. I'm not going to put lock the seat back on right now because I really need, actually I can do it with one hand. But if you really want to put stuff in here that's, keep stuff dry, this is called the large adventure bag. The venture bag, they make it in a low and a tall. This is the tall. So this is really big. Right now there's just some rags, there's a spare pair of gloves. They always keep a spare pair of gloves. But this is very big. I usually keep some towels in here just to kind of insulate your drink so they're not bouncing around and all that stuff. And then I also have, underneath this beautiful 7S display, I have the Polaris waterproof zippered bag, the waterproof zippered dash bag that goes in here. So that's really nice to have the waterproof zippered dash bag, because when that's in there, you can zipper it and everything stays inside there. Like if you want to keep your registration, your insurance, maybe a couple snacks in there that you want to keep relatively warm. It won't keep them really warm, but it'll keep them a little warm. And then that's the 7S plug right there. So I will start talking about dynamics here, saving the best for last. The smart warmers are awesome. The smart warmers work really, really, really good. You can set your custom parameters for low, medium, and high, and you can set different parameters for the low, for thumb versus hand. Same thing with medium and high. You really find what works best. I like to keep the high pretty hot, so when you do have cold hands, you can warm your hands up pretty quickly. Medium, I like to program that on a temperature where it's not going to be too hot, but it's not going to be too low. So that way, medium you can leave on all day when you're riding, and then low is just when you don't really want a lot of heat. They come with the heated shield plug. They come with a battery tender plug right there to plug your battery tender in. Of course, it's a Polaris, so it comes with a backup pull starter. So if your starter goes or your battery goes, you can never be stranded. There's your dynamics. That's going to switch between your comfort mode, your rally mode, and your extreme mode. Originally, I thought every time you started it, it always defaulted to rally, but I don't think it does that, because a couple times I did leave it in comfort, or I did leave it in extreme mode, and when I shut it off, the next time it was still on extreme, and then or vice versa, it was still on comfort mode. Comfort mode is really nice. It's really soft. Sometimes you might almost feel like it bounces a little bit more if the trail is starting to get a little bit bumpy, so then you want to switch it to rally mode. Rally mode I do most of my riding in, but when the trail gets really rough, then I do switch it to extreme, and it starts the shocks off from a lot stiffer position when it's on extreme. And on the extreme, it's not going to be, it's not going to be too stiff, but I would say, it's definitely exactly where you want it, so you can go a lot faster through the moguls. Now, the dynamics, I would say, yes, it's a game changer. It's definitely a cheat sled, meaning that any beginner rider could get on it, and it is going to make you, the rider, a better rider, because it's always the shocks are always going to fight whatever the circumstances to keep the sled planted. So if you're going around a corner or you're leaning, it's going to stiffen up the other side of the shock, or loosen, or loosen up the other side of the shock, or it's going to firm up the front track shock or the rear track shock. It controls all four shocks electronically, and there's an IMU in here, an initial measurement unit in there. That's the brain box, and it's not just taking in the shocks, it's taking in the throttle input, it's taking in your brake. If you grab a fistful of brake, you're not going to go flying over the handlebars. It's going to stiffen up the other shocks and prevent you from having that jerkiness, and it's taking in your throttle. So dynamics, it's not going to wheelie like an Assault. The skis are meant to be, planted. And when you go around a corner, you're not going to have that inside ski lift. It's going to adjust the shocks to automatically keep those skis planted, which on a trail sled, that's what you want. Because when your skis are in the air, you can't turn, if you have ski lift. Where this is, the skis are always going to be on the ground and planted. So that way, when you turn, your skis are on the ground. And Fox, in my opinion, is the best brand of shocks. So I'm really happy with Dynamics that they went with Fox. I just think that Fox, no one knows suspension more than Fox. And I just think Fox is a really, 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 good brand of shocks. And you never need any adjustment, which is really nice. And the other thing about Dynamics is no one ever rides a snowmobile all day with the trails conditions being the same. The trails might start off in the morning smooth, so you're on comfort, but then you do a turn where it's a different club that grooms it, then all of a sudden the trails are a lot stiffer. So it is nice with the push of a button. You can just change between comfort, rally, and extreme. Because on a conventional snowmobile, you're usually never going to get off the trail and just, manually adjust your clickers and, climb under there and adjust your clickers when everything's covered with snow and ice. You're just not going to be able to do it effectively, when it's 0 degrees and everything's covered with snow. So it's nice just to have that electronic suspension and be able to adjust it. Now, what did I do on these sleds? I changed out these grill inserts. They come silver, changed them out to red. This came with a black bezel, changed it out to a red bezel. Instead of the mid windshield, this is actually called the tall windshield. Then there's also an extra tall, there's an Alaskan, but this is called just the tall. And that is a smoke, so that's not totally clear, but it is pretty clear, but it's a tall smoke. So that windshield is meant to really take the wind off your chest. The problem with the mid windshield is it puts the wind right at your chest, where the tall windshield, according to my dealer, actually he says the top speed's a little faster with the tall windshield because it's reducing the drag that otherwise would hit you in your chest, so your chest is not having the drag. In top speed on the 650, I've been told people have had it across a lake, topping it out around 103 miles an hour, which is very fast. In the 650, longevity wise, you're also supposed to be able to put the most miles on it before you have to rebuild the top end. So longevity wise, the 650 is supposed to, be a higher mileage sled than the larger cylinder engines. Also had the red skid plates put on underneath for more protection. They don't come with skid plates. And then instead of the black bumpers, had them changed out to the Century front bumper, which that part number has been replaced for 27. It looks the same, but it's a different name now. Just gives you more area to grab onto. It's just a lot larger, offers more protection too. Also added the mirrors, which are really nice. You can see when there's sleds behind you, and you can see their headlights behind you, whether it's day or night, so if other groups are getting close to you, etc. Then changed out the black bumpers on the rear also to red. And other than that, that's about it. If you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer them. Love the 7S display. What's really nice about it is with group ride, you can group these two sleds together, and as long as they're within 5 miles range of each other, you can see the other person's name on the map as an arrow, and you can see their movement that they're moving. And when I get to an intersection, for example, to wait for the rest of the group, I can see the other riders. If they're, maybe it'll say 500 feet behind, or it might say, 0.01 miles or 0.02, or maybe they'll say 0.04 miles behind. And then all of a sudden you look at it a second later and it's updating to 0.02. And then eventually it'll say 700 feet, for example. So it is constantly adjusting and showing the location of the other riders, which is really cool. And you can also press another button on the group ride, and you can send like custom text to the other riders. Like maybe you want to say stop here for a photo or stop here for a break, and it doesn't work through your cell phone. It works through group ride, and it'll come up on the screen, that message. You can customize the pre-text. So there's like texts, but instead of, you can manually type a text through group ride, or you can just do, save different presets. And also with group ride, you can press on the group and it'll show you the speed of the other sleds, for example. So like if I wanted to see how fast the other sled was going, if I leave the group ride setting open, it'll say, for example, the other sled's doing 50 miles an hour, 55, 52, and it'll keep changing live, and I can leave that screen open live and watch the speed of the other sled behind me, which is really cool. The punch lights, those are necessary. The lights on these, they don't come, super bright. The punch lights come on automatically with the high beams. That's how they're activated. So whenever you put the high beams on, then the punch lights come on. The punch lights do give it a lot more light. They definitely do. So this sled with snow check, as you can see, has a red tunnel. I really like the red tunnel. When you see a red tunnel, automatically that was a snow check spring order sled. Otherwise, a red tunnel would never be available unless it was a snow check. However, Polaris offered 2 kind of reds last year for 26. So if you got that red with the red side panels, you couldn't get a red tunnel if you got the red side panels. But if you got a red tunnel on this color scheme, then it gave you the red on the seat, where the other sled doesn't have the red line on the seat. However, the other sled has the red side panels and has the red trim up near the gas tank, where this color, it's a unique color, and it still has quite a bit of red. And of course, when you add the red bumpers, red skid plates, red windshield bezel, it definitely dresses it up even a little bit more. But yeah, very happy with the 650. Coming from an 800, it's very powerful, very peppy, and it's always in the power band. Very happy with the Adventure bag. This actually is waterproof, despite them making a waterproof liner for it. I'm not sure why they do, because it's always been totally dry in there after every ride. So you don't need the waterproof liner. But I will say, for the under seat storage, if you're looking to keep stuff dry in there, they do make an under the seat liner bag. So basically that is a waterproof bag that goes inside under the seat, and then it would keep all your stuff dry. So yeah, very happy. If you have any questions about these sleds, I'd be happy to answer them. But if you're on the fence about Dynamics, if you're only a trail rider, I would say it's definitely worth it, because it is going to give you the smoothest ride, and it's also going to allow you to ride faster. I really think on a trail that you can ride faster, especially on the turns, without a doubt. You're going to be able to rail the corners with Dynamics a lot faster than you could on XCR, because an XCR with the stiffer suspension, the problem is it is going to be stiffer, but you are going to get a little bit of inside ski lift. It's not going to be as stable racing on the turns. The XCR now is differentiated more as a straightaway sled. It's meant as a ditch banger and doing jumps. That's what it excels at, but it's meant for more straightaways. It's not meant as much for cornering, I would say. Cornering is where the XCR starts to get a little bit of a weakness over a Dynamics. That's where you're never going to be able to say that an XCR corners better than Dynamics. That's just impossible, because the Dynamics is thinking hundreds of times a second faster than a human can think, and it's always adjusting the shocks to be perfect. That's the only other way to say it. Dynamics is adjusting the shocks to be totally perfect at all times, no matter what the terrain, no matter what the conditions, and no other shocks have a brain. You know, an XCR, the shocks are dead. They have no brain. They can't think for themselves. And however you adjusted them is how they're going to be adjusted for all day ride, where the Dynamics is going to change as the conditions change, and everyone knows that conditions change all day long. The Dynamics will change constantly. It's been on the side-by-sides. Polaris has had this technology out for many years. There was no problems with it on the 2025s. As far as I know, because of that, they didn't have to make any changes for 26. And then same thing now, as far as I know, there's no changes on it for the 2027s. So that's a little review, but very happy with it, very pleased, and definitely something I would recommend. I think, like I said, it's a tough choice now this year that they make the 9R in Dynamics in a VR1. However, the 650 fun factor, it's right there. You're always in the power band. It's a very fun motor. The 9R is going to be the fastest out of the whole of any of the engines, but the 650 will hang with the larger cylinders in the woods and in the trails any day up to 70 miles an hour. The 9R is just going to put you back in the seat, where the 650 can't really get you in any trouble at all, because the throttle is very manageable. And of course, the problem with the 850 boost is that's going to be the heaviest of all the engines. With the turbo, that's the heaviest. And I really think the 850 and 850 boost will probably be discontinued eventually. And eventually they'll make a 9R also available in boost, because some people on the mountains are already boosting the 9Rs right now with aftermarket turbos. So I think eventually you'll see Polaris do that to the 9R. Okay, well, that's a wrap, and we'll see you on the trails.